Okay, we have one more Twitter question we are going to go to here before we call it a night. Okay, Phoenix on Air, Shot TV Calgary. With so much bad behavior on social media, name calling, etc., what can you do to set an example?
Interestingly, this is coming from someone who I blocked on Twitter for abuse and name calling.
Really?
True that.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And I'm sure she's going to be really mad that I said that. But, you know, this is actually a very big problem.
Okay.
And particularly, you know, we saw that Premier Notley has been subject to more abuse and threatening behavior than any premier in history combined.
Yeah.
And I too, you know, I get a tiny fraction of what women in public life get, but I get it too, and it's tough. And, you know, you go between, do you just ignore people? Do you block them, right? Or do you engage with them? Do you try and convince them of the error of their ways? Or are you just really rude and snarky right back? And I do kind of all of those things.
Right.
You know, the vast majority of them I block. Sometimes if I'm feeling particularly playful, I try to have a little bit of fun with them. They rarely do that. But I remember there's
fun in it.
Oh, there's one guy. There's one guy who used to be really abusive on Twitter, and I just said to him, "What are you accomplishing here? Does it help you to just be rude? Because you don't seem like a dummy." And since then, this guy has actually become a terrific, thoughtful critic on Twitter. He doesn't agree with me or with other politicians all the time, but he says, listen, this is what I think. This is how you can fix it. So I always hold out that one guy, Chris,
yes,
as my example of maybe if it's fixable. But I got to tell you, in the last year and a half or so, it is so bad. Yeah. And the nasty, hateful, vile behavior, the racist, the Islamophobic, the sexist in particular, not just sexist, but violence against women, it's so bad. And I don't understand what has emboldened people to be like this. You know, and I think that we have to stand up to this level of hatred wherever we find it, and we all have to do it. Men have to stand up for women. Jews have to stand up for Muslims, and vice versa. You know, after the attacks in Quebec, I said my heart breaks not because I'm a Muslim, but because I'm a human. And I think that we have to stand up to this, whether it comes from politicians with microphones searching for votes, whether it comes from fake news websites, and I'm not talking about the New York Times, whether it comes from people who are peddling hate for their own benefit. We got to stand up to it. So you want to turn the other cheek. You want to just block this stuff and say, I'm not talking about it. But at the same time, you also want to denounce it where you can. And in particular, when it comes from people of power and influence, that's really where you want to say this doesn't work. But you also want to say, this doesn't work in schoolyards. Right. This doesn't work in line at the Tim Hortons, right? And I love that shirt that is in your lap, because that word, kindness, is fundamentally what we're about as human beings, as a society, as Canadians. I got to tell you something. When you speak out for love and kindness and mercy and decency, sometimes you get accused of being weak. Sometimes you get called a delicate snowflake.
Or something much worse.
And as we learned last week, a lot of delicate snowflakes together become the most powerful force in the world. So do not mistake kindness and love and mercy for weakness, because it is strength. It is strength beyond the imagining of the small-minded and of the intolerant. And that is the kind of strength we all need to reach for as we look after one another.
Wonderful. And as we all know, of course, Pink Shirt Promise Day is February 22nd, coming up here next week. Shaw, also a very huge supporter of this campaign. Bullying, hatred, we have to end it. And what, as a leader, is going to be your pink shirt promise? I'm going to get you to fill this out later.
I don't know.
We'll
try to be a little nicer on Twitter.
A little bit nicer on Twitter.
Might be tough.
Mine is going to be to set a better example for my kids.
Great.
Sometimes you're watching TV and you forget what you're, even about certain political leaders out there. Maybe we give a little bit too much of our own perspective, and we have to be kinder and use nicer words. So that will be my pink shirt promise. Do you have one of these already?
I don't have a Shaw one.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you this one, and that
thank you.
gets to be yours. What is one of the things you like to tell, especially young kids and kids in school who are just getting into that situation where bullying might be an issue for them? What is your...
You know, yesterday was Flag Day, and I got the chance to go to 4 school visits.
Wow.
High school, university, and elementary school and junior high school. I actually got all 4 of them. And by the way, the best part of it was George Stanley, the designer of the Canadian flag, is from Calgary. And so one of the schools I went to was one of the oldest schools in Calgary, Cannot School in downtown Calgary, where George Stanley went.
Oh my goodness.
His childhood home is the restaurant called the Laurier Lounge now.
Yeah.
And the other school I went to was a brand new school that opened 3 weeks ago in Cranston called George Stanley School.
Oh, wonderful.
So it was great to be there on Flag Day. So I'm trying to say I spent a lot of time with kids.
Okay.
And I get this question a lot. And I say the answer is kindness. And one of my favorite stories, one of the first schools that took on 3 things for Calgary.
You got to do it quick. We only have 30 seconds.
Sinalta School.
Yeah.
Kindergarten kid. I went to an assembly. Kindergarten girl says to me, there's a new kid in my class. She doesn't speak English very well. I later learned this was the first school to sponsor a Syrian refugee family. And she said, I want her to fit in. So I've invited her to a play date at my house so she can make friends. And I sit next to her in class. And when she doesn't understand what the teacher says, I act it out so she understands.
That's amazing.
5-year-old can figure it out. We can all figure it out.
The rest of us can do it. Mayor Nenshi, thank you so much for being in studio today. We've had a great time. We'll do this again sometime. Thanks to all the crew. This has been Up Front on Shaw TV. Thanks for watching.